Alison of Dreamweaver Designs, and today on Thinking Outside the Box, I am going to show you the easiest way to achieve crackle on polymer clay. This piece here has smaller crackle, and this piece here has larger crackle. You will be able to control the size of the crackle if you prefer larger or if you prefer smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up, and I'll be back. The supplies needed to create this project, I used black polymer clay. I'm going to use white to show you the difference that you will achieve between black clay and white clay. You're going to need a tile to work on, a couple fine brushes, detail brushes. You're going to need cutters of your choice, a stamp of your choice. Now, I have found the best way to achieve this method is by using a gloss acrylic paint. These are El Cheapo paints. These are apple barrel that you can find at Walmart. They're like 97 cents a piece. And this is Craft Smart gloss acrylic, which you can find at Michael's, and you can usually get those on sale for about $1 a bottle. You're going to need some DecoArt one-step crackle, and I'm going to be finishing today's piece off with some UV resin from Let's Resin, and it is a hard, clear UV resin, which I used on these pieces here, and the shine is amazing. The smell is not bad for this resin. However, I do suggest whenever working with the UV resin, whether it has very little smell or not, always work in a well-ventilated area. Make sure that you have eye protection, and if you want to wear gloves, that would probably be a good idea too. You don't want to just sit there and breathe this stuff in. You don't want to sit there and breathe anything in. So make sure your windows are open and that you have excellent ventilation. You are also going to need a UV lamp to cure this resin. So I think that's it. You're going to need a blade for your polymer clay. I'm going to go ahead and get set up, and I'll see you in a minute. I have rolled my clay out to a number 4 on my pasta machine, and number 1 is the thickest setting. I like to roll my clay out thinner because when I add the UV resin, I usually do 2 coats on the front, a couple coats on the back, and 1 coat along the edges. So it will make your piece thicker in the end. So always keep that in mind. So I have chosen this stamp. It is the quilt flower motif from Deep Red, and I'll have a link to it in the description below this video. Always check the description below the video. There will be a little arrow. If it doesn't, the full description doesn't come up, there's a little arrow that you can click on, and it will open up the description of the video. I always put links down there for any products that I use in my videos in case you're interested in purchasing them. So I'm going to take this stamp and put it down on the clay, and then I'm going to take my acrylic block, put it on top, and I'm going to apply light pressure. I'm not going to deep set this stamp. I just want to have enough where I can paint around the petals. So I want a little bit of indentation, but not a whole lot. So just a little bit of pressure. Go ahead and pull the stamp up, and this is what we have. We have a nice impression. So now what we want to decide is what type of cutter you want to use, what shape, and what you want to cut out of your design. And I like to do this step first because I hate wasting product. I don't want to waste my paint, and I don't want to waste my clay. So I'm going to decide what I want to cut out here. And I think I would like to leave those petals and just have kind of a mid cut here. So let's see, want to line it up so it's fairly even, and that looks good. So again, I'm going to take my acrylic block and just push down on the cutter. And then I like to just kind of give it a wiggle and a turn to clean my edges up. And this is a really nice set from RJ Crafts. There's 8 different sizes of circle cutters. So pretty much all that you would ever need. So now we have our pendant, or whatever you want to use this for. And the next step we're going to do is we're going to take our paints and we are going to paint this. We are going to paint on raw clay. So go ahead and zoom in a little more. And I've got 2 brushes here. This one I'm going to use later, but this fine brush is to really get detail in here and paint the petals in the middle and the outside. So I'm going to start with my purple, and this is Grape Taffy by Craftsmart, gloss acrylic. Make sure you shake it up. And I'm just going to work out of the cap, and I'm going to go ahead and paint these petals. Now, I'm not putting a super thick coat on. I want to kind of have a thin coat, and I like it when it's not giving full coverage. Can't really tell in those, but I'll show you what I mean. We'll go ahead and do a couple petals. So some of the white clay I like to show through because it kind of gives a better look to the petal, I think. Kind of gives it a texture. So it's a little easier to paint too because it's a stamp. You're not really going to go over the edges. But see what I mean about leaving some of the white behind? Never fails. When I start a tutorial, I get a phone call. All right, so I am going to go on to the next petal. And you're just going to do that with each one until you've painted all of them. And I'm not going to bore you with the painting of the petals, so I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera off and do the rest off camera. But this is how I will be doing it, with just a little bit of white peeking through the purple. Right. I have painted all the petals purple, and now I'm going to paint the middle yellow. And the key to success on this is to have this paint on your raw clay. You can do it on baked clay, but the effect is not as easy, and you will end up having to stain to get the crackle to show up. All right, so the middle I have done in yellow, and the outer, and I'm sorry, that was the Apple Barrel Gloss light yellow, and for the outer part, I'm going to be using Spring Green by Apple Barrel, and it is also the gloss. And these are going to be all of these areas here. So I'll do those off camera and we'll be back. All right, I have painted everything and now we need to let this dry. This is a fairly quick drying acrylic, so I would say give it about 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will be back for the next step when it's dry. All right, everything is fully dry, and now we are going to take our little bit larger detail brush and go ahead and apply our one-step crackle. Now, what you want to do here is if you want the very thin or small crackle, you're going to put a thin layer on. If you want your crackle to be larger, you're going to apply a thicker layer, and you're not going to brush it as much. You don't want to put a super thick layer on, but you definitely want it thicker. So you go ahead and shake your product up, and I'm going to be working out of the cap. And for this, I'm going to be applying a thin layer to each petal. So I'm just dabbing my brush into the cap, and you don't want to use too many brush strokes, but you want to make sure you have coverage. And go ahead and put that on thin. And you'll definitely see the product because you'll see the gloss on it. And what I like to do is start with the petals and work my way all the way around until I've got everything. Make sure you get the edges so you get that crackle effect on the edges of where you painted. So I'm kind of starting with what I painted first and then moving on. And you want to get every petal and every area that you've painted. And you can go back over, you know, something that you just did, but I wouldn't go back over the very beginning. And as you can see, that one is already starting to crackle. And your crackle will work, you'll see the effects sooner with the thinner coat. If you were to put it on thick, it'll take a little while to see that because the product needs to dry. So now I'm just going to go over these outer green areas. And make sure you get your edges because you want to get some good crackle on these edges here. And that's all there is to it. We need to wait for this to dry now, and that will take about an hour to be fully crackled. before we can put it in the oven. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, letting this sit for about an hour to finish its crackle. And as you can see, we already have crackling going on right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this sit and do its thing, and I'll be back. All right, this is done with the crackle process and it is dry. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in my oven at 275 for 1 hour. This is Primo Sculpey that I used, so that's how I'm going to do it. But just to go over this again, depending on the color that you want to come through on the crackle is dependent on the color of the clay that you use. So if you want white to shine through, you're going to use white clay. If you want black to come through on the crackle, you're going to use black clay. So I'm going to put this in the oven and I will be back. All right, this is fully cured and out of the oven and cooled down. And I am going to resin the piece off camera. I am also going to put a link at the very end of this video on my UV resin process. So to make this video short, I am not going to do the resin in this video, but there is a link to showing my exact process. And here is the completed piece. The resin did lighten up the colors a bit. I'm not sure why it did that, but it's actually kind of cool. It very much has a ceramic look, and if I can get that glare off of there, the crackle gives it like a glazing effect that you get with ceramics. So when you use the white clay underneath, you're going to get more of a ceramic look. And when you use the black clay, you're going to get more of a distressed, aged look to your piece. And then again, this is with the larger crackle. So that's all there is to it. Super easy, and I feel the easiest crackle method for polymer clay, where you're not having to stain anything at the end. Once it's out of the oven and it's fully cured, you can go ahead and either use UV resin on the top to give it a nice shine. You could use Varathane as well and just paint that on, and that will give it a nice shine. You won't get the doming effect that you do get with UV resin, but it will be just as pretty. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you found it helpful and that it inspired you. And if you liked it, please give me a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please do so, and please tap on that bell and you will get notifications every time a new video goes up. So until next time, thanks for watching and have a great day.